Okay, so news just broke about 10 minutes or so ago, which means I didn't have time to go through the entire decision yet, but I get the gist of what happened here. So there were what looks like contradictory headlines about the Supreme Court case on Trump's tax returns. One headline from the LA Times says, Supreme Court deals Trump a defeat, upholds demand for his tax returns. That's one headline. Another headline from the Associated Press says, breaking, Supreme Court won't allow Congress to get Trump tax and financial records for now. So when you read through it, and again, I didn't have time to go through the entire thing, but, just the gist of it here. Apparently what happened is the Supreme Court said, no, Congress, you can't have his tax returns. What's their reasoning? No idea. But they say, the New York Attorney General can, because apparently there were lawsuits, or you had both Congress and the New York Attorney General trying to get him to release his tax returns. But the Supreme Court says the New York Attorney General can have access to Trump's tax returns, but they say that it, quote, probably will not be released to the public. So Congress can't get it. The New York Attorney General's office can get it, but, quote, it probably won't be released to the public. Seems like a very confused decision. What they did is basically punt on the issue, and I think they sent it back to a lower court as well. Now, listen, what this is honestly probably an attempt to make it look like they're not siding with Trump while sort of de facto siding with Trump. That's what it strikes me as. So this way, they get to maintain the veneer of independence and say, no, we didn't side with him. But functionally, effectively, the court did side with him, because now, if it is going to be released, it's likely going to be after this next election. So he would get to, finish out this term without having his tax returns released. Now, the implications of this are really more extreme and more scary, because now you've set the precedent that somebody running for president, or somebody who is president, that they don't have to release their tax returns. Previously, it was just like customary, and it was tradition for people running for office to release their tax returns, basically to show the public, like, listen, I got nothing to hide in terms of, financial crimes or what have you. No, here's, the amount of money I made, here's how I got my income, so on and so forth. But this lays the precedent of a president doesn't have to release their tax returns, which means now I would assume that moving forward, you're going to have more presidential candidates and potential presidents not release their tax returns, because now they know they could get away with it. Now they know that all you have to do is, ignore the media pressure and just refuse. And remember Trump's lie? He used to say all the time, I'm going to release it. It's going to be tremendous. It's going to be incredible. But I'm just waiting for them. I'm going through a routine audit, and as soon as the audit is over, then I'll release it. Whatever happened to that? You said 1,000 times, it's because I'm getting audited, and then he never released it. So that means it was a BS line. He wasn't withholding it because he was getting audited. He was withholding it because he didn't want the public to see what's in his tax returns. And listen, guys, this is one of those areas where I don't think it's at all conspiratorial to speculate. There's a lot of questionable stuff in his tax returns. Putting aside all the, conspiracy theory nonsense about Russiagate and he's Vladimir Putin's puppet, so on and so forth, Donald Trump is a dirty businessman. Let me tell you something. As a New Yorker, I know this better than anybody. You are not able to do business, especially when it comes to real estate, in New York City in the 1980s and early 1990s, without mafia connections, without mob connections. We've covered stories of, some of Trump's hotels overseas. There was detailed reporting on how a lot of it was a front for money laundering. So how much is he involved in the world of organized crime? I think to some extent, you literally have to if you were in real estate in New York City in the 1980s and 1990s. That's really uncontroversial to say. So, to some extent, he's had connections with organized crime. To some extent, I'm sure his properties and his businesses have been used in a sketchy manner. Another thing he does is he just absolutely loads up a lot of his properties. Like, he'll borrow from the bank a tremendous amount of money, and then he just doesn't pay the banks back, and then he needs more money to keep everything functioning, so then he goes to questionable sources to get that money. He has taken loans from questionable characters, and this is what we know of. He's still massively in debt to corporate America. So, and that's, could explain one of the reasons why he was willing to turn over the keys to the kingdom to like Goldman Sachs to craft the tax plan that he implemented in 2017. He gave these financial institutions everything they want, deregulated them like crazy. Probably because he's also in personal debt to them, as well as, there was the standard political transaction stuff, the open bribery that went on, like, for example, the predatory payday loan industry gave him $1 million for his inauguration, and then he turned around and scrapped the rules that were just about to go into effect to regulate them, and he dropped the U.S. government court cases against the predatory payday loan industry. So, listen, it's just now you've set the precedent. The precedent is a president does not have to release their tax returns, so they're more likely to not do that, which means on top of the traditional avenues of bribery and corruption that we have, of campaign contributions, now you have another avenue. The avenue is personal corruption, literal, like, quid pro quos, put the money in my bank account and I'll do X, Y, and Z for you. So that's where we are. And the Supreme Court, with a really weaselly decision, I'm getting sick of these weaselly decisions. Like, just take a stance. Take a stance. If you're going to say, don't release it, then just side with Trump. No, they did the middle path. Oh, we're going to send it back to a lower court. The attorney general could see it, but, not Congress, so maybe not the public, and so anyway, this stuff is ridiculous, but there you have it. And Trump is too dumb to know that this kind of helps him, this decision, so he's out there tweeting as if he lost, because I'm sure he saw some of the headlines that say, Supreme Court deals Trump a defeat, upholds demand for his tax returns. When you read the details, not really, but he's out there and he's tweeting like he lost, and he's angry, and it's like, not necessarily, bro. I don't know what's going on here. You just probably didn't learn anything about their actual ruling. So, but anyway, what else would you expect from Trump? That's the breaking news there. That Trump can kind of de facto still hide what's in his tax returns, which means, transparency is destroyed yet again. And you lay the precedent of personal corruption, which will probably be a much even bigger issue moving forward.